Welcome, everybody. Thank you for dropping in during this very serious emergency live briefing on potential, well, not potential anymore, almost certainly major Hurricane Ida, as it is working towards Louisiana. We're looking at a live satellite feed of it right now. You can see it really starting to twist up and turn. Like earlier today, when I made the video earlier today, it really didn't look that impressive on radar, but I'm sorry, satellite, but it has seriously intensified just since then, okay? We've seen a lot of deep convection. We've had a lot of aircraft reconnaissance data send back us, confirmation after confirmation that this storm is continuing to deepen and intensify much faster than any of the models expected. Even the notorious NAM model didn't overplay this one, at least in the earlier forms. I'm pretty sure it's still overplaying it down the road there, but as you can see, it's there. That's Hurricane Ida, and it is a hurricane right now with sustained winds of 80 miles an hour, and it's moving towards the northwest at 15 miles an hour. And this is like as real as it gets. Like, this is probably the most significant threat as far as weather goes that we have talked about this year, and we've talked about some pretty significant stuff. So like always, I would like for you guys to make sure you share this on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, any of that stuff. And if you can't do any of that, then just at least like this video. Go down there and like the live stream, subscribe if you haven't already. That way the algorithm puts us in front of the right people, okay? So I'm going to try to, actually use this instead of this live stream being us monitoring the storm. I'm going to treat this as an additional video. Sorry. So I'm going to go through the forecast models. I'm going to go through the National Hurricane Center. I'm going to show you a little bit of everything. And then, this also won't be a 10-hour long live stream or anything like that. We're just doing a live emergency briefing here because I just got word in that a lot of people in southeastern Louisiana are going to be mandatory. There's going to be mandatory evacuations put in place. So that's going to be a mess here in the next couple of hours. I want to make sure I get this information out before those people have to deal with that. And also a much broader area of southeastern Louisiana is going to want to probably voluntarily evacuate. This is one of those situations, man, where you've probably been scrolling through your news feed or your YouTube feed and you see all this stuff, crazy big bad storms coming, get out, take shelter. And you're probably like, oh, great. The Facebook and the YouTube weathermen are back at it with their clickbait, and it's nothing to worry about. And I hate to say it, but this is the one time where, even some of the worst clickbait artists on the internet are probably not doing this thing justice, okay? This is going to be an extremely dangerous storm. It's likely, right now, the National Hurricane Center expects it to make landfall as a 140 mile an hour Category 4 major hurricane, and I believe that there's definitely room for that to go up. A Category 5 with this storm is completely not out of the question. Is that going to happen? I don't know. I'm not going to sit here and tell you that I know, but it's definitely a very real possibility, and it's probably more real than we will see for the rest of the year, and it's probably more real than we have seen since the last Hurricane 5 or Category 5 that we got. So we're going to go through all of the different models here. We're going to go through all the different data, and then we're going to look at the reconnaissance data as well. And as you can see above my head, we've got a couple things going on here. First of all, we're looking at a live camera from the Keys, okay? I think it's called Pigeon Key right here near Key West. And you can see they're starting to experience some of the thunderstorms that are associated with Hurricane Ida. And then right below that, you can see that we had the Hurricane Ida landfall countdown. That's right. According to my calculations, I think we've got 2 days, 2 hours, and 25 minutes until this thing hits somewhere in southeastern Louisiana. So first of all, let me talk to you about my plan as far as the videos go. The reason I'm doing this emergency live briefing is because I found out very quickly this morning that doing one video a day in a rapidly developing situation like this is just not going to cut it. Everything that I talked about earlier today in my video is completely outdated. Don't even worry about watching it. So I'm going to do this, live update, and I'm also going to do this tomorrow. So early tomorrow morning, I'm going to be uploading a regular video. And then later in the day, probably around 4 or 5 p.m. Eastern time, I'm going to go live, and I'm going to stay live for a little while until we've talked about everything, okay? And then on Sunday, I think I'm going to go live probably around noon, okay, 12 p.m., and then I'm going to stay live all the way until midnight or maybe even later as we track this thing through its landfall, okay? So if you want to catch all that, if you make sure you don't want to, miss that or anything like that, hit the subscribe button now, and I promise that's the last time I'm going to ask you to do that today. So welcome everybody that is watching right now. We've got almost 900 people watching. Thank you guys for being here. Once again, I am going to not be very interactive in the chat. I'm going to treat this as a normal video, and I'm going to go through all the models and everything. So bear with me. Maybe at the end we'll do a Q&A or some sort of, I live here. What's going to happen for me? Blah, blah, blah. And I'll do that at the end. But right now I'm just going to speed run through it, okay? First of all, let's take a look at our live look here. Once again, this is Pigeon Key in Florida, okay? And you can see those dark clouds along the horizon there. That is associated with the outer bands of Hurricane Ida. That's right. This morning, it was just a tropical storm, and now it's a hurricane. It'll probably be a Category 2 sometime tonight. And then tomorrow, it'll be a major hurricane. It's crazy how fast this thing is exploding. I talked earlier in my video about bombogenesis and this thing being a bomb cyclone. This is literally probably going to be in textbooks in the future concerning the bombogenesis and the process that goes into making that happen. So this is really going to explode, literally. As this moves off to the north and west, okay? So let's take a look at the National Hurricane Center now. Let me load that up here, NHC. There we go. This is the latest update from the National Hurricane Center. Once again, this thing has winds in it already at 80 miles an hour, okay? It's already a Category 1 hurricane. We talked earlier today about this thing maybe becoming a hurricane over here in the same parallel as Miami, Florida. But now it's expected that it will be a major hurricane by that time. So that's how fast this has developed and strengthened. If that trend continues, that's why I think that, we probably have a decent chance here of seeing a Category 5 storm. Now, will this be a Category 5 when it makes landfall? That's a different story, okay? I think that there's a pretty good chance of this becoming a Category 5 storm at some point during its life, especially now from what we've seen. But will it make landfall as a Category 5? That's something we'll talk about a little bit more when we start looking at the model data. But this is something you don't see every day. The National Hurricane Center has this thing making landfall as a 140-mile-an-hour storm, a major hurricane Category 4 in southern Louisiana, okay? Once again, I want to stress this. If there's anybody watching this right now that lives there, this is not the kind of storm that you play around with, okay? I know Louisiana, you saw multiple storms last year. You had a Category 4. You had Category 4 Laura go through. You had Delta go through. You had a lot of bad storms last year, and you've probably lived through a lot of bad storms in your life. But this one's probably going to be a little bit different, and it's probably going to be a little bit more intense than what you've seen before, okay? This is not one to play around with. If there are mandatory evacuations for your area, you need to start preparing now. Leave me playing in the background, okay? All right, I don't need you sitting here watching my face. All you need to do is hear my voice. Go ahead and start packing, okay? This is a very serious situation. Even me, okay? I purposely drive through whatever to get as close to these storms as I can. Even I would be getting out of there if I was in southeastern Louisiana right now, okay? That place is a very uniquely dangerous place for a major hurricane that's approaching from this angle because of the storm surge, okay? We could see waves, storm surge over 20 feet in some areas here, and that's literally going to cover miles of the inland area in water. And that's something that we haven't seen in a while down here in Louisiana. So that's something that you definitely want to take very seriously. 2 p.m. Sunday, 2 to 8 p.m. That's around when it's going to be trying to make landfall, okay? And it'll make landfall as a major hurricane. If it doesn't make landfall as a Category 4 or a Category 5, it will definitely make landfall as a Category 3, and that will still be very devastating for the area. And then it will quickly weaken into a hurricane, tropical storm, and then a depression by the time it makes it into northern Mississippi. Now, I know there's a lot of people in the inland areas here that are kind of worried about this, and they're wondering, how's this going to affect me? How's this going to affect Arkansas, Tennessee, Kentucky? And I'm going to upload a very detailed forecast video tomorrow about how this storm's going to affect the rest of the region. There is a chance for flooding, and I know that's very unfortunate for the places here in Middle Tennessee. And there's also a chance for tornadoes. So It's kind of interesting to look at, so we'll talk more about that tomorrow. Right now, we've got to worry about the imminent threat of this major hurricane making landfall here in southern Louisiana. And possibly, I mean, the wind field here is going to be pretty big, so you can probably expect hurricane force winds as far east as into Mississippi and as far west as, closer to where Hurricane Laura made landfall last time. So we'll zoom in here in just a second and take a look at exactly where these impacts are going to be felt. But for right now, let's take a look at some reconnaissance data. Zoom out here. Give me just 1 second. So I showed this earlier in my video. The reason we know so much about these hurricanes, especially when they're out in the middle of nowhere, is because we actually have hurricane hunters. We have people that fly airplanes into them, and they drop weather instruments into them, and they record data for us. So we're watching live right now a new mission that this plane right here is flying into Hurricane Ida, and they're going to give us some new information here. Probably, it'll probably be a while before we actually get that. That's a big distance that they have to cover before they will actually make it into the hurricane. But that's something that we will be watching live tomorrow and also the next day. So we don't have any data right here. I did have, hold on 1 second. I did have the data from earlier. But anyways, basically what this reconnaissance data showed on their last trip is what they'll do is the storm's like, rotating right here, right? They'll fly through it this way. They'll make like an X motion twice. And they'll literally fly through the center 4 times, and then they'll go out to the edges. And the whole time they're recording the barometric pressure, and they're recording the wind speed and stuff like that. The last time they went out, literally during the time they were flying around out there, during one mission, the storm dropped from 999 millibars all the way down to almost 994 millibars. So that is just showing you how quickly this thing is deepening. It may already be undergoing bombogenesis, but that was just something I really wanted to show you. But I think that mission was deleted, and now we're just looking at the new mission here. And at the end of the live stream, we'll come back to this and look at it, okay? Now what we got to do is we got to talk about the forecast models, okay? Lots of different forecast models. Lots of different stuff to look at here. Earlier today, a lot of them were a little bit all over the place, but right now it looks like they are a little bit more, in agreement with each other as far as exactly where landfall is going to take place. So let's zoom in here to the southeastern portion of the United States. That gives us a good view there of Louisiana. That's the hot spot right here. Okay, so let's take a look at the upper air moisture simulated IR. Okay, so once again, I gotta always say this. The disclaimer, the NAM 3-kilometer model is not made for tracking tropical cyclones. The only reason I am showing this to you is to give you a visual representation of what the infrared satellite could look like as we go forward, okay? Because this storm's going to undergo rapid intensification, bombogenesis, and it will likely, very quickly go from a Category 1 to a Category 3 hurricane, and then probably it'll undergo another phase of intensification and go from a 3 to a 4, or possibly a 3 to a 5. So this is what that could look like on satellite as we go forward. Look at that. You see how it's got a well-organized eye there, and then it kind of looks like it falls apart, and then it re-wraps up real quick. That's very common in these kind of storms whenever they approach the southern Gulf Coast and they're undergoing bombogenesis or rapid intensification or whatever you call it. This is looks very similar to what happened with Hurricane Laura before it came in last year. So, that process right there is what it looks like whenever these things rapidly intensify. And a lot of times it'll make you, do a double take, okay? And the NAM, once again, the NAM is over-exaggerated with everything that it does here, okay? It's over-exaggerated with the intensity, and it's also over-exaggerated with the kind of deterioration of this cycling process. But still, you'll be looking at the satellite, and you'll see a very nice, well-defined eye wall and a hurricane. Then it looks like it might be starting to, tear apart and everything. And then all of a sudden, you see big hot towers pop up around the center of circulation, and they wrap around, and then all of a sudden you have a much stronger storm than what you did before. It's almost like a Pokemon evolving in front of your eyes. That's literally what happens. And the crazy thing is, and the only reason I'm showing this and talking so much about it is because this process is likely going to be happening as it moves on to land, which poses unique threats and dangerous situations that don't happen when this process happens way out over the ocean where it usually does. So not only are you going to have increased winds and increased, or decreased pressure, that increase in wind and decrease in pressure is going to be happening and expanding as it moves on to land, creating even more accelerated wind gusts and an even bigger problem with storm surge. So that is what the NAM 3 kilometer is showing. And I'm not going to show any other parameters. We're not going to talk about the low pressure system or, the wind speed with the NAM or anything like that. I just wanted to show the simulated IR because I'm telling you right now, man, like this right here, it's a little bit exaggerated, but this will be similar to what we see on the infrared satellite as we are looking at it on Sunday around 7 p.m. So keep that in mind. Now, let's take a look at some more reliable models. Okay, we've got some new data from the Euro model. This is the 12Z model. Let's take a look at those surface wind gusts because that's what everybody wants to see. Let's see here, surface wind 10-meter gusts in miles per hour. Okay, so the Euro is traditionally very conservative with these storms. Okay, usually I don't think I've ever seen the Euro forecast a category 3 or a category 4 storm until it was like literally hours out. Okay, the fact that we're still 2 days away from this storm and the Euro is picking up on the intensity that this thing could possibly have is something that I have never seen before, okay? Now, I've only been, looking at weather models and stuff for maybe a little bit over a decade. There's definitely some people that have some time on me, and maybe my memory serves me wrong, but I swear I don't think I've ever seen the Euro, a very conservative tropical model, predict these kind of winds at this time period. So here we are, Sunday, August 29th at 2 p.m. The Euro is possibly showing wind gusts. Now, this is not sustained winds, but wind gusts more than likely around 160 miles an hour. 160 mile an hour winds around the center of circulation here with Hurricane Ida as it approaches southern portions of Louisiana. That is devastating. That's literally just a couple mile an hour away from being a category 5. And then as this comes onto shore, we're talking about 140 mile an hour winds, and 120 mile an hour winds deep inland here. We're talking about, we're past the shore here. The eye wall has made it onto land. And that northern portion of the eye wall, the deep convection and the center of circulation there, that massive area of wind still may have 124 mile an hour wind gusts as this comes ashore. And look here, we're still above 100 miles an hour as it gets into, more northeastern portions of the southeastern quadrant of Louisiana. We could be talking about hurricane force winds in southwestern Mississippi, okay, all the way on 5 p.m. on Monday. And then we are continuing to see hurricane force wind gusts possible all the way through 1 a.m. on Tuesday through central Mississippi. And then we're finally below hurricane force, but we are still looking at 72 mile an hour winds possibly for some places in central Mississippi. And then this thing finally lets up. But we're still going to see tropical storm force gusts in 30 to 50 miles an hour, possibly all the way through northern Alabama, central Tennessee or middle Tennessee, and central Kentucky. So that right there paints a pretty sobering picture for what could possibly happen with this storm. Once again, the Euro is usually pretty conservative. This could just be a bogus run. I hope to goodness that's what it is. But if this is actually, like if I'm doing the algorithm, if I'm doing the math in my head based on what every other category 4 storm that's made landfall looked like on the Euro 2 days prior, this is worse than any of them. You know what I mean? I don't want to scare anybody, and I'm not here to hype this thing up. But I think at this point, it's time for us to stop worrying about hyping this thing up and then start worrying about maybe we're underplaying it, okay? Maybe there's somebody down here in southern Louisiana that's thinking, oh, well, 130 mile an hour winds. So, there's very possibly going to be 150, maybe even 160 mile an hour winds with this thing. So I don't think that you can just balk at that. I don't think that there's anybody or anything out there that will just, happily accept that. So once again, I highly recommend anybody in southern and southeastern Louisiana to take this seriously. And if you live along the coast, definitely get out of there, man. Like seriously, get out of there. You're not going to miss work. There ain't going to be no work. All right. You're not going to miss school because there ain't going to be no school. All right. Like seriously, like what are you doing? You got to get out of there. And please, if you can, get out of there as fast as you can. Go ahead and start working on it. So once again, major category 4 storm. according to the Euro. Let's see here. What else we got? We've also got to look at the HWRF. All right, let's take a look at the HWRF model, and let's see what it's up to. This is some older data. This is the 12Z, but this 12Z version runs a little bit earlier than some of the other ones. This one's showing wind gusts right around that 113, 114 mile an hour mark. Oh, that's the wind speed. That's the wind speed. So that's even more impressive. This is sustained wind speed, not just wind gusts. So constant 110 to 114 mile an hour winds in between the 150 mile an hour wind gusts as we approach 5 p.m. here on Sunday in southern Louisiana. Literally, what structure, what can handle that? You know what I mean? Absolutely bad news here. Hold on one second. I'm trying to figure out something. Okay, all right, so yeah, this makes landfall according to the HWRF model around 8 p.m. on Sunday. So that's another thing that a lot of the models are starting to agree with, okay? A lot of the, like earlier we were thinking maybe 2 p.m., maybe 4 p.m., maybe 8 p.m., maybe 10 p.m. landfall. A lot of the models are now showing, okay, yeah, for sure, it's gonna happen around 8 p.m. So if that's right, then my timer is right. If you remember correctly, let me show you that again. Oh. There it is, yeah. Above my head, Hurricane Ida landfall countdown. 2 days, 2 hours, and 8 minutes away from landfall, if this thing actually does make landfall on Sunday at 8 p.m. So that's what we're looking at there. Let's see what the radar could look like too. This is always interesting to look at. So once again, we're going to notice that this rapid intensification happens. We're going to see a well-defined eye wall with this. So there are some storm chasers that are going to go down to Louisiana, some crazy people. You know, you got your Reed Timmers that are going down there. There's actually a lot of people that are going to go try to intercept this storm. And by the way, if there's any storm chasers that are watching this right now, if this is your first hurricane that you've ever chased, turn around. You're not going to be ready for this. Seriously, this is not your average hurricane. It's hitting in a part of the United States that is just it's the weak spot. It's literally the weak spot of the United States for hurricanes because of the massive amount of water that's going to be allowed to come inland. You could be in a situation where you're, trying to film the wind gusts somewhere in southern Louisiana, and then, you think, oh, well, the ocean's in front of me, I can see it, but then all of a sudden there's a bunch of water that comes in behind you, and now you're stranded. Can't go either way. That's how the storm surge works out here, okay? There's little channels and pathways for the water to work in around you, and then it closes you off from behind, and now what are you going to do, okay? If you're a storm chaser, make sure you are prepared for what you're getting yourself into. This is not a good storm to make your first hurricane intercept with. All right. Now, thankfully, most of the storm chasers that are going to be down there are professionals. Like I said, Reed Timmer is going to be down there. I think iCyclone, Mr. Hurricane Man's going to be down there, and I'm sure that we'll have all kinds of pictures and videos from them as the storm's going on. And I will be here in the weather room, you kind of relaying that information to you. So make sure you subscribe to the channel right now if you haven't already and you want to see that. I will be live streaming the whole day. But anyways, this is what the radar could look like as it approaches landfall. And look at that eye. That is a very well-defined eye wall. And according to this model, it's making landfall. Let's see here. Where is that? I want to give you like the exact area. It's around the Morgan City to Baldwin area is what I'm seeing. The Morgan City to Baldwin area, maybe just a little bit east of Marsh Island. Let me double check myself there. No, it's even further east than that. Hold on. I really want to give you guys I'm not 100% familiar with the geography out here, but I want to give you guys the most in-depth information as possible, because I know we got a bunch of people from this area that are watching. So Duloc, the Mandalay National Wildlife Refuge, Homa, the Bayou Cane, all these places right here, if you live here, this is where the storm's probably going to be the worst, and especially to the east of there. This is going to affect New Orleans badly. Okay, even though this isn't going to take the track that Katrina did or Hurricane Camille did or anything like that. This is still going to be a very bad storm for New Orleans, and this storm surge is still going to be possibly 15 feet or more over there into the lake. I think there are mandatory evacuations already for this area too. But yeah, if you live south and west of New Orleans, especially along the coast here from Morgan City, Centerville, all the way down into La Rose, and then cut off and let's see here, Chauvin. Trying to list off as many places as possible, but you know, that's where it's probably going to be the worst. That's where you can expect maybe 20-foot storm surge, and then all this stuff right here is underwater, every single bit of it. So let's go back to the weather models, and we'll wrap up the forecast here. But speaking of storm chasers, if there is anybody out there that's brave enough to go down there, you know, Reed Timmer, all these people that are going to be sitting there waiting on the hurricane, and they, you know, survive the eye wall as it comes through. The reward is going to be very good, because I think that this storm's going to have a very well-defined eye wall. It's probably going to have a pretty big eye too, especially if that rapid intensification happens and then it reforms right before it makes landfall. We're going to have a big wide open eye, and there's going to be a crazy stadium effect in there where you can literally, you were just in the craziest storm you've ever been in your life, and then you look up, then there's clear skies with a big old giant, it looks like you're in a stadium with all these clouds around you, and they're rotating really fast. It's I've never experienced it myself, but it's probably one of the craziest things you could ever experience in your life, similar to like a solar eclipse or witnessing a tornado up close. So yeah, that's going to be a very interesting thing to see the videos and stuff out of that. So once again, if you live down here, get out. Make room for Reed Timmer. He's got it covered, okay? Okay, so is there another model that we want to look at? The HMON storm. Yeah. Yeah, this right here is pretty much is showing the same thing as the HWRF, except the landfall takes place a little bit closer to Marsh Island there. Okay, and just in case you didn't know, I know a lot of people who live down here are very familiar with the ins and outs of the way hurricanes work and stuff, but usually the top side and the eastern side, this part right here, that's the part of the hurricane that is the most intense. So anytime you see an eye of the storm, the side to the west of that, there's definitely going to be very strong winds and a lot of bad stuff happening on that side. But all of the strongest winds and the heaviest rain and all the storm surge and stuff happens on the eastern side of that eye wall. So wherever this thing makes landfall, it's on the eastern side where we will expect to see the most damage and the most storm surge. And according to this, once again, it's going to be there in the Vermilion Bay near Marsh Island. So let's go back to Google Maps. I really want to talk about some stuff here. What I would do if I was you guys, okay? If I lived south of Lafayette in Abbeville or Perry or New Iberia, Avery Island, all the way down to Baldwin, Franklin, Centerville, any of these areas right here, I would consider leaving. Okay. Now I don't think that there's any mandatory evacuations for these areas right now, but there probably is for the more southern areas. I would consider leaving. Now, I'm not trying to scare you. Okay. I'm not telling you to get out as fast as you can or you're going to die. You know, my job here is to communicate the significance of the storm that's getting ready to come through. And once again, it is my personal opinion that if you live in those areas, you might as well get out. And you don't have to go far, okay? I don't want people that live in Alexandria to get too freaked out. I don't want people who live all the way up in Shreveport to get too freaked out. You could literally drive a couple hours up here to Alexandria or to, you know, even better, probably like Leesville, or, you know, go take you a nice little day trip over here to the Sabine or the Sabine, however you say it, National Forest. Go have a relaxing day at the lake or something, because you don't have to go very far away to escape the extreme impacts that are going to happen down here on the southeastern portion of Louisiana. Okay, all of the storm surge, all of the 130, 140 mile an hour plus winds are going to happen way down here. Okay, if you can make it past Lafayette, better yet, if you can make it all the way up to Alexandria, you are going to have some big winds and some, you know, it's going to be a bad storm, but your life won't be in danger. Okay, your life is in danger if you stay and you're down here. Okay, so I just want to make sure I communicate that correctly. My job here is not to scare anybody. I swear to goodness, I'm not sitting here hyping this up to try to scare you or to try to get a rise out of anybody. I'm seriously just saying from my heart what I think is necessary. Get out. Let's see here. Probably a couple other things that I want to cover. I think we're going to get some new model data from not the Euro, but from the NAM here in just a little bit. If we haven't already, hold on. Yeah, what I just showed you was the 18Z. Okay, so just to kind of re-up everybody, I know we've got a lot of new people that are just now tuning in. This is a live emergency briefing on the upcoming major hurricane that will make landfall in Louisiana on Sunday. Okay, once again, I want to reiterate how serious of a situation this is. Okay, the title of this video is emergency, crazy, catastrophic hurricanes coming, and it's not clickbait, guys. It's not clickbait. This is not something that you should take lightly. This is definitely going to be, this is as serious as it gets. There is absolutely nothing out in front of this storm that is stopping it from becoming a Category 5 storm. And, am I sitting here saying that it's going to become a Category 5? No. But, if we didn't have forecast models, for example, and I was a meteorologist in the 1930s, and somehow I had access to this satellite image, and I could tell because we have buoys out here that the sea surface temperatures are around 85, close to 90 degrees in some areas up here south of Louisiana. And then also we have this high octane loop here in central Louisiana where there are temperatures above 28 degrees Celsius in the water, up to 20 meters down under the surface. I would say, and also there's absolutely hardly any Saharan dust floating around out here. There's a big area for outflow to come outside of the storm. There's an anticyclonic, area of pressure that's going to help the outflow from this storm to keep it from drowning itself out. I would say, yeah, there's definitely going to be a Category 5. The only reason why nobody's saying that there's going to be a Category 5 right now is because none of the models are really showing it. And I think sometimes meteorologists and people who are in this industry lean on models a little bit too much. And I think this is the one time where we should probably, kind of go with our gut and say that, hey, it's very possible that a Category 5 storm is coming towards the southern Louisiana area. And, if we're wrong, if I'm wrong in the end, I'm not going to feel bad about that because there almost definitely is going to be a Category 4. And hopefully the wording of Category 5 will actually make people take this seriously and get the heck out of there. So once again, this is Hurricane Ida. Right now, it's just about 80 mile an hour. 80 mile an hour winds. That's what we're talking about right now. It's going to go off to the north and west and affect Louisiana here by Sunday at 8 p.m. Let's go ahead and show you once again, because I know we got a bunch of new people here. Let's show you one more time the National Hurricane Center, their latest update. And yeah, there you go. 80 mile an hour winds. It's moving towards the northwest at 15 miles an hour. And by 2 p.m. tomorrow, you see that M? See, it goes from H to M. That's hurricane to major hurricane. And then it does make landfall, according to the National Hurricane Center here, on Sunday evening as a major hurricane with possibly winds around 140 miles an hour. Sustained winds, 140 miles an hour. Okay, that is no small thing. No small thing at all. And then this thing will still be a hurricane as it goes past Lafayette. Then it'll be a tropical storm in southwestern Mississippi, a tropical depression, and then, it's going to bring a lot of rain and stuff to this area of the United States and possibly some tornadoes and some severe weather in Mississippi. And we'll talk more about that tomorrow morning. I will have a full forecast video tomorrow morning around 10 a.m. So if you want to see that and you haven't done so yet, make sure you hit that subscribe button. Whew. Sorry, guys. Talked for like literally 40 minutes straight. I had to take that drink. So anyways, this is Hurricane Ida now. And you know what? Let's go through the models once again. Let's go through all of the models once again. And then we will look at that reconnaissance data as we go forward. Let me zoom in here on the south eastern portion of the United States. Let's take a look at that infrared satellite. Wow. Okay, so this is new. This is new. Okay, so this is the NAM 3-kilometer model. We don't use this usually to track cyclones, but I really enjoy looking at the infrared satellite, what it predicts that's going to look like. And once again, you see that well-defined eye wall, and then it kind of dissipates as it moves onto land there. Now, here's another thing. I mentioned towards the beginning of the stream that I do think that this storm will eventually become a Category 5. A Category 5 storm. With winds in excess of 155 miles an hour. However, I'm not 100% sure whether or not that storm, that Category 5, will be the storm that makes it onto land, okay? And I'm getting ready to explain it to you right here in a second. Let me, first of all, adjust the temperature in this room. Got like 80 different monitors over here in front of me, so it starts really getting warm in here. Especially when I get all amped up talking about hurricanes and stuff. Let me zoom in. Let me zoom in to Louisiana. There we go. Okay. So, according to this model, almost certainly at this point, this would be a Category 5 storm, okay? For the extreme southeastern areas of Louisiana, that would be a catastrophic storm. But what might happen here, and this happens a lot with hurricanes, and it's one of the reasons why it's very rare to actually have a Category 5 make landfall in the United States, is that this is going to ride this boundary between water and land here. And you got to remember that the energy, the vacuum suction area, the energy source for these storms happen in this area around the storm, okay? So as long as everything under that is warm, hot, juicy, and water, it's going to grow. But because this storm may actually spend a decent amount of time where only half of its energy restoration point is over water, it might start to weaken, which is good news, okay? It's good news. We don't want this thing to make landfall as a Category 5. But if that was to happen and the center of circulation stays off the shore here and waits until it hits Marshall Island or down in here in the Vermilion Bay, then what we might see is that it's a Category 5. It's a Category 5. Oh, it's a Category 5, but it's a lower one. Oh, it's a Category 4. It's a high-end Category 4. Oh, it's a medium range for Category 4. And now when it's, officially made landfall past the island there, we might be talking about a standard Category 4 storm. That's how quickly these things can, weaken as they move on land. Now, they can really intensify very quickly, but they can also weaken very quickly as well. And that's kind of what we're hoping for, is if this actually takes this exact track where it kind of rides the boundary between land and sea there, we might see it weaken enough to where it's actually not a Category 5 whenever it makes official landfall. Now, here's the thing. Category 4 storm's still going to absolutely tear everything up. All right? You still need to get out of there. You still got to evacuate. You're still going to see, billions of dollars worth of damage come from this area. And that's, you don't want to see that. And but the Category 5 is obviously, if you see winds over 160 miles an hour, that's going to make things a lot worse. So we want to see this weaken in any way that we can. And the only reason I'm mentioning this is because this is our only fail mode. This is our only fail mode. This is the only way that this thing doesn't make landfall as a catastrophic storm. And don't get me wrong, it would probably still be a pretty, damaging storm here, but there's nothing out there that's stopping this thing from rapidly intensifying into a Category 5 storm. There's nothing out there that says, oh, well, actually because of this parameter or this parameter, we might only see a Category 3 storm. No, everything, it's like your foot is on the gas. All right, if you're the Gulf of Mexico and you're like, all right, let's see what the hurricane can do. That's literally what it looks like out there. And our only fail mode are little situations like this, little accidents like this that may or may not happen. Now, if this storm is right here and then it goes straight north, absolutely no chance that it weakens. Absolutely no chance that it weakens enough to, not be a Category 4 or 5 whenever it makes landfall. So I just wanted to denote that little situation there just in case, because I think that's probably the only way that we're going to have a weaker hurricane, not a weaker, but a weaker major hurricane make landfall. So we can at least hope We can at least hope for that. Okay. Splatter Browns, thank you for the super chat. I think a lot of people have sent super chats. Guys, thank you so much. I really do appreciate it. I haven't had time to read everybody's out. If you can't send a super chat, or if you don't want to or anything, all I ask, if you enjoy the coverage here, is to smash that like button for me, okay? I really appreciate it. And subscribe if you want to see more of this stuff. So, all right, that was the NAM 3 kilometer with the infrared satellite. Let's take a look at that Euro model again. Still completely blown away by the Euro model's interpretation of this storm. It's showing a very strong storm, which usually the Euro model does not do that. So once again, keep your eye on that max down there. 5 p.m. on Sunday, we could be talking about 157 mile an hour winds in this storm. And then some of those winds come ashore there in extreme southeastern Louisiana. Where is that? So according to the Euro, possibly late Monday or early Monday morning, the Euro's a little bit slower. We could be seeing 150 mile an hour winds down here in this place. And thankfully, I don't think there's a lot of people that live down here. Little Hammock. And why are these names so hard to pronounce? Four League Bay, Lake Chapeau. You know this area. If you're from here, you're familiar with this. There's not big neighborhoods down here or anything, but when that storm comes ashore, this is one of the places that will be the first ones to experience those 150 mile an hour winds, if that's what we actually see. And you also got to remember here, if this is the trajectory that this storm takes, all the water, okay, this thing's, blowing water around at 150 mile an hour underneath of it. And also it's a low pressure system, so it's, it has an effect, a rising effect on the water. Every single bit of that water is coming up this way. All right. And we're talking about massive storm surge, possibly getting into the Duloc area, the Chalvin area, possibly all the way up into the LaRose area, and the Dixie Delta Canal. Okay, so you got to think about all these canals, all these low-lying areas up here in Louisiana. There's a good portion of the southern part of the state that could be underwater as this storm comes ashore. Just to be clear, the difference between a Category 4 and a Category 5 storm is in order for it to be a Category 5 storm, the sustained wind has to be over 157 miles an hour, not just the wind gusts. Sustained winds. So there we go. Okay. So right here on this side, that's where we're experiencing those 150 mile an hour winds. And then as it gets closer in there towards the Vermilion Bay and Marsh Island, we're down to 124 and 112 and 100 miles an hour. And then you saw this earlier if you were here watching. We can expect possibly hurricane force wind gusts all the way up into central Mississippi by late Monday into Tuesday. So there's so many different threats with this storm. We have to take it one at a time. And once again, I am going to be making a video early tomorrow morning about the threats that we can see a little bit further inland. So if you live in Louisiana, Arkansas, Mississippi, Alabama, Tennessee, Kentucky, or any of those places, please consider subscribing to the channel and turn notifications on so that you can see that video tomorrow. I'm going to go in depth there. And of course, I'm going to update you on the coastal impacts here as well. All right. Now let's take a look at that HWRF model one more time. There's another thing that I want to show you. Let's look at this hurricane panel. Hurricane panel. This is, we like looking at this because it shows us a lot of different data at once. So what we're looking at here are the 925 millibar wind speed in knots. That basically just shows you the intensity of the winds, okay? Don't pay too much attention to the speeds down here. Just know if you're in the reds or in the browns or in the really deep reds, you're in deep trouble because there's going to be some strong winds there. This panel over here shows you the precipitable water. That's going to show you how much water is in the atmosphere available for the thunderstorms within the storm to tap into and turn into rainfall. So the brighter these colors, you'll see some bright blues here in a minute. That's just talking about absolutely crazy downpours of rain. This is the most interesting part of the panel here, and this is one of the main reasons why I wanted to even show this. is this right here shows the sea surface temperature and the pressure. Okay, so we're gonna watch this one closely because we're gonna really try to see where this storm's gonna go over the hottest areas of the sea. So you can already see here you've got some lighter browns. That is 30 degrees or higher Celsius sea surface temperatures. We're nearing, 90 degrees in some of those areas. So as the storm travels to the north and west, if it maintains itself over those brown and lighter brown waters, or they're not literally brown, but if they're depicted as brown on here because of the temperature, if they stay over those high temp waters, we are going to see a major category 4 or 5 storm. Okay, and then of course this is what the radar will look like as we push it forward. So let's go on here and well, that didn't take too long to figure out. It does not look like this thing is going to get into any cooler waters. It's staying over probably the warmest channel here it could possibly stay over, and it even makes it into some of those pockets that are above 30 degrees Celsius. So absolutely there's no point in even trying to think that this thing's going to weaken due to any sort of sea surface temperature problem. Now, here's one thing that could happen, okay? And you can kind of see towards the end here that it starts to happen, okay? You can see as the storm gets closer to some of these really warm waters, they start to cool off as the storm gets closer. And you're like, what? What's going on? Is the warm water just getting out of its way? Is the warm water afraid of the storm? And it's just like, whoa, let's get out of here. No. What's happening here is that this storm is going to be so big and so powerful. You can see that precipitable water. You can see all these storms rotating around the center of circulation there on radar, that there's going to be enough rain, okay, enough rain and cloud cover ahead of the center of circulation that it might actually do work on the ocean and cool it off a little bit before the storm gets there. So, that might be one of our saving graces, maybe, especially if the storm decides to ride the southern Louisiana coast there and gives us a little bit more time to die off. But man, I would not put my money on that. I would not put my money on that, especially if I lived down there in Louisiana. I would just go ahead and prepare for the worst. Prepare for the worst and hope for the best. That's what we do. Creative Experience, Morgan, Sarah, thank you guys so much for the very generous super chats and super stickers. I really appreciate it. Really appreciate it. You guys are asking questions. What would happen if it hit just north of Houston? It's not going to hit near Houston. I can promise you that. I can promise you that. What happens if it hits Pensacola, if it landfalls here? Well, that would be really bad. It would be really bad. But I can also promise you it's not going to hit Pensacola. But yeah, guys, thank you so much for the support. It is greatly appreciated. What were we talking about? Oh yeah, sea surface temperatures. So yeah, especially once we get closer to the surface here or towards land, those sea surface temperatures can be messed with a lot more because the water's shallow there. But what I was talking about earlier, when this storm is going through this area in the central portion of the Gulf of Mexico, that's where the sea surface temperatures cannot be screwed with. It's warm out there. It's 85, 86, 87 degrees Fahrenheit. And it's that warm all the way up to like literally 60 or 70 feet below the surface. So like the water's just been cooking out there for a long time, and there hasn't been a lot of storms work over the area. So there's just this very deep layer of warm water right here in the central portion of the Gulf of Mexico. No matter how hard it rains or how much cloud cover this thing produces in this portion of the storm, it's not going to cool down the waters because new warm waters will just rise to the surface every time that it starts to cool off. So the last time we saw such a high octane centralized area of deep rooted warm waters in the central portion of the Gulf of Mexico with a storm that's getting ready to work over it was in fact Hurricane Katrina. Okay, at least to this degree of what we're seeing it right now. So here Hurricane Katrina did reach a Category 5. It was a Category 5 for a little while, but it did start to actually weaken before it made landfall eventually as a Category 3. Eric, thank you so much for the super chat. The specialist, thank you so much for the super chat. You guys are awesome. Thank you. I got to take another drink of water. Somebody said, Ryan, you seem to love this too much. Guys, if you're watching and you live down here in If you live down here in southern Louisiana, do not mistake my enthusiasm for, how do I put it? Don't mistake my enthusiasm for like I'm cheering the storm on. Okay, that's not the case at all. Absolutely not the case at all. I am a true lover of weather. I don't know what it was for as long as I can remember. Even my parents say that for as long as they can remember, I have always been truly fascinated by meteorology and weather. Literally, I was studying meteorology. I was like getting books from the library and just like constantly consuming this information from the time I was 6 years old. When I was really young, I didn't watch the Disney Channel. I didn't watch Nickelodeon. I watched the Weather Channel. And I did go to school. I went to Mississippi State University for meteorology. I didn't finish, though. Maybe that's why I'm here on YouTube and not on the news. I don't know. But I just love weather. This is my passion. I love weather, and I also love YouTube. YouTube is one of my passions. So me being able to be on here right now talking about something that I've monitored my whole life in front of 2,000 people and possibly helping countless people, it makes me happy. Okay, I'm not happy that this storm is going on right now. I hate it, but it's going to happen whether I'm here or not. So I might as well use this platform that I've been given and all the support that you guys are giving me right now to do everything that I can to explain to you the threats of this storm from every single angle. Okay, I'm not just going to show you one model and be like, well, this is what the Hurricane Center says. I'm going to show you everything, and I'm going to show you the insides and the outs of the storms. I'm going to show you what's impossible, and I'm going to show you what's possible, and that's what I'm here for. So thank you so much for all the support, guys. Seriously, I really do appreciate it. Once again, if you look above my head here, Hurricane Ida landfall countdown. We are 2 days, 1 hour, 37 minutes, and 53 seconds away from this storm right here possibly turning into a major Category 4 or Category 5 storm and slamming right into the southeastern part of Louisiana. That's what we're here talking about today. This thing really wrapped up and it's looking a lot more intense right now than what it was earlier. That's for sure. Hurricane hunters. Yep. Thanks for that reminder. Man, they are still not in the storm. They are still not in the storm. Yeah, they are. They're in the storm. Give me just a second here. Trying to find some info. I don't know if the website that I'm looking at is just botched or what. Here's a non-tasked research mission into Ida. So here we go. We got some 73.6 mile an hour winds here, just to the south of the western edge or the western fringe of Cuba. 60 mile an hour winds there. This is not the mission that 80.6 mile an hour winds there. 80.6 miles per hour. This is not the mission that I was want to look at. This is the non-tasked research mission into Hurricane Ida. I want to look at mission 05. Once again, guys, if you're just now tuning in, you're like, what's this guy talking about? We're actually watching live data as planes fly into Hurricane Ida to give us some information about what's going on inside of it. So, you can see the path that this thing is taking, and usually you can see a bunch of wind barbs and a bunch of different stuff like that. So here is the latest little probe that they've dropped into the storm. And, they're dropping them in the northern part of the storm where the winds are only blowing like 14 miles an hour. So we'll check back in on this. And this is something that is going to be a lot more active when the storm's actually going on, or when we start our live stream on Sunday at 12 p.m. There's going to be multiple planes and multiple missions going on at the same time. And we'll be able to look at all the different angles of the storm as the planes fly through and gather data. So we might not be able to look at all of that right now. We can go over to tropicaltidbits.com. I highly recommend this website, by the way, guys, if you are Looking to look at some of the forecast models on your own, or possibly look at this aircraft recon data on your own. Yeah, so mission number 5 just doesn't have anything yet. This is mission number 4 earlier. Can you guys see that? Yeah, this is what I was talking about earlier, how crazy this was. So these planes, flew into the storm like this, and then they went down here, and then they went around, and they did their thing or whatever. But during the time that they were doing their mission, this is one mission. A plane can only fly for so long. When they first intercepted that low-level center there, it was a 997 millibar low-pressure system. And then the second time they came through, it was a 996. And then it was a 992 and then a 987. It was when this 987 reading came through that I knew that we were not talking about a normal storm. Okay? That we are not talking about a normal storm here. This does not happen this far south unless we're talking about an absolutely action-packed, completely buck wild storm. All right? I don't know how else to word it. So that much of a pressure drop in such a short period of time is not just bombogenesis. It is incredibogenesis. And I hate to joke around during times like this, but that is, you don't see that every day. And the only impedance it had going from there was going across Cuba. And it's going across Cuba right now, and it don't seem to hurt it that much. We've still got a big, wide area of circulation here, and it's going to continue to do so. As soon as this thing gets away from Cuba, I think we're easily going to see this go from a Category 2 to a Category 3. It might be a Category 3 by the time it gets right here. And then it might reach Category 4 status by the time it gets right here. And then, once again, it's very possible, if you ask me, for it to reach Category 5 status right before it makes landfall there in the southern portions of Louisiana. Mandatory evacuations are happening in southern portions of Louisiana. And I want to go ahead and reiterate how important it is that you listen to those mandatory evacuations. You got to get out of there. You got to. All right. Mandatory evacuations only take place in places that are really, really, sensitive to these situations where the storm surge can get in. But I would say voluntarily evacuate, even as far up as into Franklin, Louisiana, New Iberia, Abbeville, Perry, anywhere south of Highway 14 here in southern Louisiana. You got to get out. South of Highway 90, especially south of Highway 90, should be mandatorily evacuated. That's a word. Mandatorily. And once again, I do want to let you guys know that you guys in New Orleans, you're going to see a big storm out of this. Not going to be, this isn't going to be cake just because it's hidden to your west. This is not going to be like Hurricane Laura, that's for sure. Hurricane Laura, you guys really didn't feel much at all from it. This is going to be a little bit worse. But it's also not going to be Hurricane Katrina. So, I don't want to terrify anybody. My job here isn't to scare your britches or make you crap yourself or something. Traffic right now is really bad in New Orleans. It's also bad in Baton Rouge. But it's not very bad down here on the hurricane evacuation route from Morgan City all the way up into Lafayette. And I don't know if that's good news or bad news. Hopefully it's good news because everybody's already got out. And now if you're still out there, you can go get out yourself. But it might be bad news because there very well possibly could be a bunch of people who are just ignoring the warnings here and not getting out. Oh yeah, I didn't even notice. Morgan City, that's going to be a terrible place to be. Morgan City will be a terrible place to be if this storm makes landfall in the way that the Euro suggests that it's going to. We do have some backed up traffic here in Morgan City, though, so hopefully that means people are getting out. That's what we want to see. We want to make sure that people are getting out. Very rare that I come on YouTube here and I tell people, usually I just tell you the weather, and like, hey, it's probably going to storm. It's probably going to be pretty bad. But today I'm saying, get out. Leave. Not worth it. I mentioned this earlier, but you don't have to worry about work. You are not going to go to work tomorrow. If you live in extreme southeastern Louisiana, I'm sorry, not tomorrow, but Monday. If you live in extreme southeastern Louisiana and this storm makes landfall in the way that we think that it will, You don't have to worry about work. You don't have to worry about school. There's no reason to stay back. And you've got time to pack. And there's not a lot of traffic right now, so. By the way, we do have a live view right now. This is coming from just to the north of Key West. And they are starting to experience some of those thunderstorms from Hurricane Ida on the outer bands there. Take your animals. Yeah, take your animals for sure. Head northwest. Yeah. Once again, and just in case there's anybody just now tuning in that didn't catch my message earlier, you don't have to go too far. I know there's 2,200 people in here watching. We got to have somebody from Morgan City watching right now and being like, seriously, really? Should I leave? Like, should I leave my home? Yes. All you got to do is make it to Lafayette, or more specifically, probably even better than that, Alexandria. We're not asking you to go all the way to Canada. It's not going to be, this ain't the end of the world. Just go northwest. Stay there for a couple days. And I promise you will probably be very glad that you did that. Lots of people have arrived in the campgrounds here in Arklatex as they are fleeing the storm. That's what I'm saying. Go to one of these mini lakes up here in northwestern or western Louisiana and just have a little relaxing time. You're going to need it. So this is not a weather monitoring live stream. We're going to do that on Sunday. Once again, on Sunday, we are going to live stream the whole thing, probably for 12 hours or more straight. I'm going to be right here in this chair. We're going to be looking at the aircraft reconnaissance data as the planes are flying into the storm. We're going to be looking at live cameras on the beach. And we're going to be looking at live updates from storm chasers out there who are going to be right in the middle of the storm. I think we're actually going to have one storm chaser, too, who is going to be on the phone with us. So we'll be able to call him and get updates from him live as the storm's going on. So if you want to see that, make sure you subscribe. But this particular update is probably about to come to an end. I do want to do a very quick Q&A though. So if you have any questions for me, please keep them realistic. This is not going to hit Miami. This is not going to hit Myrtle Beach. I'm going to try to answer as many questions as I can right now. Go ahead and let me have it in the chat. And, obviously, super chats are going to get precedent, and don't get mad at me for that. If somebody pays $2 to get their message on there, I'm going to read theirs first. It's just how this works. It's how it always works. And then everybody always gets mad at me because they're like, oh, well, he's only reading the stuff that people pay for. Well, blame YouTube, not me. They're the one that set that up. And I want to try to keep this, as informative as possible. So make sure your questions are on topic, because we do have over 2,000 people here watching. And I want to make sure that I continue to relay useful information for these people. Will this be a slow-moving storm? Okay, so Soul Prepper said, will this be a slow-moving storm? This is a Harvey situation. No. Okay, so yes and no. Let me go back to the models, and I will show you a little bit more about what I'm talking about there. That's a good question. That is actually a really good question. So let me go back here. We're going to go to the Euro model. Once again, we're going to go to, we're going to look at the United States as a whole. Actually, no, we're going to go to the Southeast, and we're going to look at the precipitation total. Okay, so this is how much rain we can expect across the eastern portion of the United States from Hurricane Ida. Now, this is not a Hurricane Harvey situation, because Hurricane Harvey dropped, 40 inches of rain in some places. It's the most prolific flooding event we've seen in a very long time. However, this is still going to cause very significant flooding, and it is going to slow down a bit before it makes it to the coast. So it's going to be going pretty fast as it comes through here. It's going to slow down a little bit and make a little bit of a left-hand turn and then go towards Louisiana that way. So it is very possible that some of those areas down here in extreme southern Louisiana are going to possibly experience over 15 inches of rain from this storm, maybe even closer to 20 inches of rain. And then even deep inland into portions of Mississippi, we could expect 8 to 10 inches of rain. And then very unfortunately here in Middle Tennessee, right there where Waverly, Tennessee is, and all these places that got affected by the historic and deadly flooding not too long ago, you guys could expect possibly 4 inches of rain out of this storm. Now, thankfully, I don't think that's going to create a situation where we see another devastating flood, but it's certainly not going to help with the cleanup effort, and it's not going to help for the people who live in the flood-prone areas that see flooding normally. This won't produce another historic flood for you guys, but we can also expect flooding all the way up through western Kentucky into north central Kentucky into southern Ohio, and then maybe the remnants of this storm could actually slow down a little bit, put out a little bit of a boundary in front of it, and cause some significant flooding here in Maryland and portions of West Virginia and northern Virginia, with maybe close to 10 inches of rain possible once again. But as you can see, the biggest portion of rain is going to fall down here in Louisiana, right there on the coast. Possibly 10 to 20 inches of rain is possible for you guys. So if you live in a flood-prone area, obviously if you live in a flood-prone area that can be affected by storm surge, 100%, you're going to feel the impacts of this storm. But even if you're a little bit further inland, like I was saying, more towards Lafayette, even some of those areas are going to experience significant flooding just from the rainfall alone. And you got to think that rainfall normally flows down into the ocean and when the ocean is at a normal level. But if you push the ocean onto land a little bit, that rain can't drain into the ocean as efficiently, therefore making the flash flooding an even worse situation. So, yeah, very good question. I appreciate that question, and I hope that was useful, or my answer was useful anyway. Let's see here. Charlie, thank you for the $5 super chat. He says, I just want to thank you. Is landfall still predicted Sunday night? Yes. As of right now, it looks like about 8 p.m. 8 p.m. Sunday is when we can expect landfall from this storm. It could be a little bit later than that. Some of the models, including the Euro here, show possibly it not making landfall until closer to midnight Monday. But it will be sometime between 6 p.m. Sunday and midnight Monday. We'll narrow it down tomorrow. Creative Experience. Do you think the right turn will happen and we will see a Category 5 landfall? First of all, thank you for the super chat. Yeah, I think that it's very likely that we see a Category 5 storm. I don't know if we'll see a Category 5 landfall. That's something that I'm not comfortable saying that we'll definitely see Category 5 storm. I don't feel comfortable saying that. As much information and data is out there that supports that hypothesis, I don't feel comfortable saying it. I do think we'll see this storm reach Category 5 intensity, but will it actually move on to land as a Category 5? I don't know yet. Just go ahead and act like it will if you live down there and prepare for it. How bad could this be if it goes to Category 5? This could be devastating if it makes landfall as a Category 5, or even if it makes landfall as a Category 4. Some of these places are going to be flooded like they haven't been flooded ever, maybe. I mean, seriously. So, you got to think about how many people live down there and how many people have probably ridden out hurricanes before that they were Category 3s, or maybe even they were Category 4s like Laura, but they hit a little bit further to the west. And a lot of those people are sitting down there in southern Louisiana right now thinking, you know what, I've seen this before. But the fact of the matter is they haven't. They have not seen this before. So, yeah, I think it's going to be really bad. I think there's going to be billions of dollars worth of damage. And I think the news stories for the days following the aftermath are just going to be terrible. And I hate to say that, and once again, I'm not trying to scare anybody, but I'm hoping that there's somebody listening to me that's on the fence right now about evacuating, and they're just going to go ahead and leave. Will it weaken if it goes east? If this storm ends up going east, That's more than likely because it's strengthening. Okay, so I mentioned this earlier. If this thing actually tightens up and forms an eye, for example, let me show you. If this thing forms an eye right here, for example, I don't think it's going to rapidly intensify that quick. And then it really starts ramping up, and it's a category 4 right here, and it's category 5 right here. Usually, the tendency is that the stronger the storm and the deeper the low pressure system, the more it will gradually flow off to the north and east, in the northern hemisphere at least. So the stronger the storm becomes, the earlier the storm becomes stronger, the more east it will go. But I don't think it will draw it so much east that it will affect, Pensacola or Panama City Beach or anything like that. But it might draw it east enough to where we see a little bit more of an impact in New Orleans. Okay, so there is a possibility here where, right now the forecast models say it's either going to make landfall here or it's going to make landfall right here. That's the most likely path. But there is still a slight likelihood that this storm makes landfall right there, near New Orleans, and take almost the exact same path as Hurricane Camille did back in the 60s. So that is, that would be the worst case scenario. The absolute worst case scenario is this thing goes a little bit further east. It strengthens sooner than what we thought, and then it, kind of does like a direct hit on New Orleans. That's unlikely right now. It's unlikely that that's going to happen right now. Trying to read some more of these updates. A lot of people are asking me about the Iowa tornado. I'll look at that right here in a second if I can't find any more good questions. I know there are hundreds of you guys that sent in question. And obviously I've missed a lot of them. There are thousands of people here. But I'm trying to read as many as I can. How does a hurricane with 150 mile an hour winds only move at 15 miles per hour? That's a good question. It's probably not very easy for me to explain, but I'm going to do my best. Okay. So, at this point, if this thing reaches 100, oh my goodness, why does my pen keep changing sizes? Okay. If this thing has 150 mile an hour winds right here, and then it takes it a whole day to reach right here, you're probably thinking, well, how in the world does that happen? Well, the thing is those 150 mile an hour winds are not what are propelling the storm. Okay. What's propelling the storm actually is just the tendency for cyclonic storms in the northern hemisphere to gravitate towards the North Pole. At least in this situation, like seriously, there's no wind shear. There's no alternating forces that are affecting the storm. And that's one of the scariest things about it. So there's nothing that's really forcing this storm to go anywhere. So it's just going to take its time doing so. Those 150 mile an hour winds happen close to the core of the storm where there's rapid rotation. Okay. Some hurricanes, especially ones like this, where you have a really tight eye wall, or we call it like a pinhole eye wall. Some hurricanes act very similarly to tornadoes, where you have this lower convection level cloud layer right next to the eye wall that's very close to the ground, and it's rapidly rotating, near the ground. And that's where you can sometimes see those 150, 160 mile an hour winds. And, it's the same situation there as it is with a tornado. How does a tornado have 200 mile an hour winds, but only move at 20 or 30 miles an hour? It's happened before. And the fact that it's just because those winds are not what propel the storm. They're just a part of the storm, and they're moving around inside of the storm. They're not going outside of the storm and then propelling it forward or anything like that. There's probably a much better way to explain that. And in fact, you would probably want to study a little bit about thermodynamics and kinematics and all the different, dynamics that go into creating rotating storms in the northern hemisphere before you could really understand it. But that's one of the ways that I can explain it. Think of a hurricane as a tornado, but just, the tornado's really big and you're zooming out. Why does it look like two hurricanes in one? Well, right now, what you're looking at is this is Hurricane Ida. All right. And the center of circulation is right here. And here's something really cool. I got to comment on this. I saw the other day, I was watching something, I think it was maybe on TikTok or something, and it was for the other hurricane that we had, Hurricane Henri, off the East Coast. And, you know, they were looking at a similar satellite image to this, and this guy on TikTok was like, look at that. Look at that. You see that right there? That's an explosion in the middle of the storm where we caught them. They're setting off bombs in the hurricane to try to make it stronger or steer it or something. And that's just not... That's just not what's happening here. Basically, all that's going on is the center of circulation is right here. And then around the center of circulation, what's going to happen as this thing continues to intensify are big thunderstorms are going to pop up. And, you know, when the thunderstorms, you've probably seen this in your own hometown. If you looked outside and you saw a big cumulonimbus cloud hit the top of the atmosphere and it kind of flattens out on the top, literally, that's an explosion. Thunderstorms are explosions. They gather up all this moisture and instability, and they release it upwards into the atmosphere until it hits the top, and then it flattens out, and everything rains down, okay? So that's what we're seeing here. These little explosions that you see are just new thunderstorms that are forming. And it's also important to remember that what you're looking at here is a 3-hour loop. So, you know, although it looks really impressive and it's like some nuclear bomb went off here and suddenly there's this giant cloud, well, it took about 3 hours or at least an hour and a half for that to actually form there. And anyways, my point is this is the center of circulation. That's the deep convection that's happening around it. And this over here is just a disconnected area of convection that's going away from the storm. And this is going to happen as the storm continues to go through different phases and cycles of intensification. So there's not two separate hurricanes here. This is just a cluster of storms that's separated from the center of circulation. This is the hurricane right here. And the more we see these big white things pop up, those we call them hot towers, the faster this thing is going to intensify and become a major problem. Okay. Before I end it here, I do want to take a look at the tornadoes in Iowa. Okay, so we do have a little bit of a tornado outbreak happening here in Iowa. Man, of course it happens right where there's no radars hardly. Man, you kidding me? All right, we're gonna go dual pane here. We're gonna look at we're gonna go 4 pane, and we're gonna look at the. Oh wow, yeah, that is a that's a tornado and a half right there. We currently have a tornado warning for, let me pull it up here. A tornado warning for Floyd County in Iowa. All right. This is weather spotters reported a funnel cloud. So we do have confirmation down there that we've got a tornado coming down. You can see the rapid rotation here on velocity. Thank you guys for pointing this out to me. I know this is supposed to be a hurricane update video, but I've kind of talked about everything, so I really quickly want to talk about the tornado that's going on up here in Iowa. If you know anybody out there, I mean, odds are if you live in southern Louisiana and you're watching this stream, and you know, odds are you don't know anybody in Marble Rock, Iowa. But if you do, all right, make sure you let them know that there's possibly a tornado on the ground and heading right towards them. So yeah, once again, you can see that inflow area right here, and then a little bit of a rear flanking downdraft on the backside, and that is producing more than likely a tornado there, really close to Marble Rock, just north of Doherty, in south of Rockford there in Iowa. So if you live out there, if you happen to be watching right now, or if you know anybody that's watching out there, make sure you tell them to get to shelter now. Very serious situation as we are watching once again, a possibly big-time tornado move into the Marble Rock area. Yeah, weather's just crazy right now, man, as everything's popping off. Got hurricanes, tornadoes. I'm not going to cover this one in its entirety, but I am pretty concerned about the town of Marble Rock right now, so I might stick here with it until this is moved out of the area. But we'll go back and forth between the tornadoes and the hurricane here, because that's the title of this stream. That's the reason people are here, or to talk about the hurricane. So yeah, that's pretty much it for the stream, guys. I want to thank everybody for tuning in. Real quick before you leave, please hit the like button. You don't know how much it helps. Hit the like button. please hit the like button. And if you haven't already, subscribe to the channel, because I'm going to be streaming all day long on Sunday, and I'll also do another one of these brief updates tomorrow. I've been streaming now for an hour and 20 minutes, and it's just time for me to end it. I've talked about everything, and yeah. Let me find a good ending song here. I always like to do that. So once again, thanks to everybody for tuning in. I really do appreciate it. One last update here on the tornadoes. What have I done? Oh, anyways, there's possibly a big tornado moving into Marble Rock. Big tornado moving into Marble Rock, Iowa. If you know anybody out there, make sure they get to shelter now. This has been a live emergency briefing on the upcoming major hurricane that will make landfall in Louisiana on Sunday. It's expected to make landfall possibly around 8 p.m. On Sunday. If you live there, this is my last plea to you to please pack now and leave. Get out of Louisiana. Get out of southeastern Louisiana. You do not want to be there when this thing hits. This is not going to be a regular hurricane that you've lived through before. I promise you. If you're south of Lafayette, if you're south of Highway 90, get out. Mandatory evacuations. Mandatory evacuations are underway. And once again, I'm going to be updating y'all on the impacts for the rest of the United States from Hurricane Ida tomorrow morning. So subscribe and make sure you're here for that, okay? I really appreciate all of the subscriptions. I appreciate all of the super chats and the new channel members and everything like that. You guys are awesome. I will see you tomorrow. Okay? All right. Goodbye.